hang on just a second. Hang on a minute. We got to start the meeting first. Oh, we just practicing. Okay. Just checking. We'll let them practice. I was fixing to jump up. We're trained to stand up. Yeah, he's ROTC. Yeah, he's sharp as a tack. I know, that kid is sharp, yeah. Yep, I mean, that list is long. All right, you ready?
Thank you all for coming. If I could ask Pastor Mark McAdow from the Willowview United Methodist Church to lead us in our invocation.
If you would please bow with me in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day with cooler temperatures on the way. Thanks for the good health that allows each of us to be present here tonight. We realize every day is a special gift from you. We pray for our staff and students who are currently suffering with health concerns. You are the great physician. Bring complete healing in your time and your way. Protect us all from long-term illness. We thank you for our superintendent, Darrell Floyd, and the faithful members of our school board, Matt Sampson, Kyle Whitehead, Joe Blackwood, Matt Lohman, Chad Mance, Frank Nelson, Toy Turnbow, and Colonel Paul Miller. We also thank you for parents who volunteer and support our schools and teachers, as well as their own children's academic pursuits. Lord, may you bless, support, and encourage our teachers and staff during these continuing challenging times. Help them to persevere with integrity, effectiveness, and hopefulness. Thanks for entrusting us with the ability to learn and reason, giving us the opportunity to make helpful and wise decisions. May we all grow in the truths and principles of your holy word as we become lifelong learners. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. With that, call the meeting to order. Let the record show all members are present, excluding Joe Blackwood and Frank Nelson. Presentations.
I love the month of September because we get to have our students come back as Spotlight students. So our Spotlight student tonight is from Monroe Elementary School, and I'm going to let Mr. Allen introduce them and tell us a little bit about them.
It's good to have Alyssa Brooks with me today. She's a wonderful representation of what we look for in our kids and behavior and just the resiliency she shows, and just super proud of her and glad to be able to introduce her to you guys.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So first off, I would like to speak about my school. First thing I would like to say, I would love to thank all the wonderful teachers, and especially my wonderful, sorry, I had to cough there, and my wonderful principal. They make me feel so welcome and open at my school. And I love that they care so much about my education. They're so open-minded, and they always help me with questions I need during class. And that's all I really prepared.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you very much. We have a certificate for you there. Thank you very much. And let's get a picture. Anybody else would like to get a picture? Come on down. All right, let's get one more. All right, good job. Thanks for coming tonight.
May you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
All right.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms.
Thank you, Alyssa. And our spotlight student at the secondary level, Mr. Rob Mills, is going to introduce our Waller Eagles student.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. I want to introduce to you a student at Waller Middle School. He's been here, this is his third year here, correct? Third year here. Julian Jenkins. He excels in academics, excels in athletics, and also excels in the arts. Involved in all three. And he just happens to be our student council president. And at the beginning of this year, I was thinking about our school and things that we needed to do, and I reached out to him and said, hey, will you make us a video just challenging our students? And boom, in about 2 or 3 days, he had a video ready and had some music to it. A very creative young man and a very good leader for our school. So I'll let him speak.
Hello and good evening. I am Julian Jenkins, an 8th grader from Waller Middle School. I'm the student council president. Some of the activities I participate in at school are student council, outdoor education, and sports. The sports I play are basketball and baseball. I'm currently only in outdoor education and student council, while my basketball season starts in November and my baseball season starts in March. One of the community activities I am involved in is I attend Emmanuel Enid with my family on Sundays. I also enjoy volunteering in the community with my traveling basketball team. Some of my hobbies outside of school are playing sports and video games. I also like hanging out with my friends and riding our bikes around the neighborhood. In the summer, I especially love swimming and going to water parks with my friends and family. I am most proud that no matter what obstacles life has thrown my way, I've continued to choose to rise above. Life is full of ups and downs, but in the end, it's all a choice, and I choose kindness and positivity. Even though through the last year and a half of quarantine and distance learning, Waller has continued to stay strong and make our education a priority. We have continued to soar like eagles.
All right, good job. Anybody else want to get a picture? Come on down. All right, thanks for coming. Good job.
And the last group of individuals we'd like to recognize tonight are our 4 Enid police officers. We are very fortunate that all 4 of our Enid Public Schools police officers have received their CLEAT training. So I'm going to let Mr. Jason Priest tell us a little bit more.
All right, you guys come on down with Chief Priest.
Good evening. I never really thought that I would be the old timer in the room, but
But here you are.
I know. I went through the Cleat Academy and I graduated in August of 2000. My cleat number is 5 numbers long. I think all of theirs is 6 numbers. But I started here in January of 20. We had 3 campus police officers. We're now fully staffed with 4. Officer Lomway graduated from the State of Oklahoma Cleat Academy September 7th. So now all 4 of us are State of Oklahoma Cleat certified law enforcement officers. When I got here, the longest tenured one was Officer Greg Pavlik. Officer Brian Rios started when I started, and then Officer Lomway. They've all worked very hard. The Cleat Academy now, when I went through, was 7.5 weeks long. It's now 16 weeks. When I went through, it was in Oklahoma City, so it was a pretty quick drive. Now it's in Ada. So for them to complete that is, it's a monumental task because you're away from your family. The family takes a lot of the burden too. So I had it easy. I was 22 and no family in 7.5 weeks. So I would say give it up to them for what they've accomplished in the last few years.
That's
thank
great.
you for recognizing us.
Yeah, thank you guys. We've had a goal for several years to be fully staffed with 4 campus police officers that are fully Cleat certified, and now here we are, and you see all 4 of them here with us tonight. So thank you guys for taking the time, effort, and energy to get all of that work done to become fully Cleat certified, and we appreciate what you do for the district. Thanks for coming tonight. Good job.
All right, which brings us to audience to visitors, which we do have 2. Before we go any farther, I'm going to read over our regulations for audience to visitors real quick. Any individual wishing to address the Board of Education must submit a request to the board at least 5 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. The board clerk shall ask all visitors to list their name and the visitor's registration. The president of the board shall recognize the speakers in the order in which they are requested and received, and they must adhere to the time limits established by the board. Specifically, the president may require all proponents of one side of an issue to elect 1 spokesman. Without a special permission, no person may speak longer than 5 minutes or more than once during the audience to visitors portion of the meeting. Board members may not ask questions of the speaker. However, the board members and administration staff cannot respond to questions. Proper questions from members of the public may be referred to the superintendent for later report to the board. The board will not, in most instances, be able to vote on matters brought forward to the public during the audience to visitors. Members of the public shall not be recognized while the board is conducting its official business. The board shall not hear personal complaints unless the proper administrative procedures concerns complaints have been followed. The board will not tolerate personal attacks on members of the board or the administrative staff. The use of profanity is prohibited. Under unusual circumstances, the president may recognize individuals who have previously requested to address the board. With that, Ms. Sharon Doty, excuse me.
Second try, yeah. Good shot there. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Sharon Doty, and I happen to be the vice chair of the Martin Luther King Holiday Commission, and a couple of the other commission members are with me tonight. We're here tonight to really encourage you to actively promote the poetry, poster, and letter competition that we will be sending a letter to the schools and to the pastors and to everybody we can get it to for students to begin to engage in this conversation. We've taken as our charge a quote from Martin Luther King that I'm going to read so I get it accurate. Judge a man not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. And last year we created a theme and a whole idea about how we would really promote this throughout the community in a number of unique ways. And then COVID decided otherwise for us. So we weren't able to pursue this. We have taken that theme to this year. And the theme of our program is We Are America. And our intention is to engage students at all levels, whether their teachers are participating or not. Their parents can assist them with this. We have a special provisions in our program for those with special needs. All we require is that they be on the back of it, someone write that to us, that this is a special needs student, so that that's taken into consideration during the judging process. We're asking also something different of our high school students this year, junior high and high school students, and that is they can write poetry, of course. That is one of the places, but if in the past they've been asked to write an essay. And due to a conversation with some of the language arts teachers in Tulsa Public School, or in Enid Public Schools, we actually changed that this year, and we're asking them to learn to write a letter, an informative letter. Not only a letter that speaks about, a letter to Martin Luther King, that speaks about how they see his dream coming to life or not in our community, and for each of the things they share that they think are not up to snuff, we're asking them to take one of them and give us a solution. Begin to create what's next. You know, we do an awful lot of pointing. That's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. It should be, it should be, it should be. And so we want our students to look for what's missing, but we also want them to begin to think about what it's going to take to have that no longer be an issue for them. They can actually, we will be giving awards, and those will be given at the celebration. Our intention here tonight is to really encourage you to encourage participation at all levels. You know, our youngest kids can draw pictures, and they're amazing at it, and we want to see them. We want to see what their mind has to say in color on a piece of paper about what's possible and what's missing and what's been accomplished. So I'm here tonight with my colleagues on the commission to really ask you for your active participation and support for this project. It is needed in our community for us to develop our commitment to diversity and to expand it in as many ways as we can. And we on the commission are really committed to accomplishing that this year. So thank you.
What's the time frame of that competition?
The competition you'll be getting the letter probably within the next 10 days, and the deadline will be January, the first part of January. It'll be about a week before the event.
Okay.
We need about 10 days, a week to 10 days. So there's plenty of time. That's why we're here tonight, is so that it's not a last minute thing. We really want people to begin to engage and to look around the community. We're actually also thinking of expanding this conversation to the community at large and asking some of those like me who've been around since way before the 60s to look and see what, from our eyes, what's different, what works, what doesn't work, what do we still see are the gaps, and have the community begin to get engaged in this and write our letters to Martin Luther King also. So we're really committed that this conversation become a community conversation this year.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Jeremy Kirkley.
If y'all don't mind, I have a very loud voice, so I'm going to step away from the microphone. It's just military anyhow.
Well, the only problem with that is that we record this and we broadcast it, so they probably need to hear you.
No problem, sir.
Okay.
I know it's been a long day for everybody, so I'm just going to read what I wrote. Hopefully it's short, sweet, to the point, and y'all can understand where I'm coming from. So, ladies and gentlemen of the school board, schools, staff, and parents, probably the only one here, let it be known that the topics that I bring forth can be very controversial. I come to you tonight with the topic of critical race theory and approved reading. Before I get to these two topics, let me bring you up to speed as to why I'm here. My student came to me with the issue of doing a report for their enriched English class and stated that they were in fear of completing this assignment because they felt that their views might not match up with their peers in the class, that they would be chastised and possibly beaten up after school, exact words. As a parent, that concerns me. So I dug a little deeper into the topic as to why they might think this way. As a concerned parent, I took on the responsibility of reading this book that was assigned to my child. I have it right here. There's about 50 to 100 copies in the Enid Public Schools library at Enid High. The book is titled Dear Martin, and it is authored by Nick Stone. Now, before I get into the details of this book, let me state a couple of facts. Number one, this book was written on a 4th to 5th grade reading level. I've done my homework. And was assigned to my junior and 11th grader. Number two, this book is not on any of the national reading assignments. Again, I've done my homework. For any grade of education. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of this topic. As a father, I am utterly disgusted and enraged that this book was assigned to my child. Within the first 4 chapters of this book, I read the words, and I'm going to break your policy, sir, I do apologize. It's all in this text. Ho, bitch, shit, goddamn, and yes, of course, the $5 word, mother of all words, fuck. In no way, shape, or form is this language appropriate for a teenager in high school to be saying, writing, or reading. My children and I and I'm sure that many others in this room, unfortunately there's not a crowd here tonight, are not permitted to speak with such foul filth. Have I used these words? Yes, I have. I'm no hypocrite. Have I used these words in front of my children? Again, yes, I have. And to know, I am also a 40-year-old man that has seen combat 4 times in 2 different countries. So I feel that I have earned the right to use those choice words on occasion. However, my children do not, and they do know that. Now let's talk about the context of this book. This book was written so that it depicts white versus black, black versus white, along with youth being slain by cops and vice versa. Not to mention that it also went on to promote gang and gang violence at one point. Also to note the sexual innuendos, where the main character's friend mentions to the main character that his girlfriend, just the other day, had her hand wrist deep down another man's pants. Now I ask you, is that appropriate? I don't think so. Let's move on to the critical race theory. Definition of critical race theory is a body of legal scholarship and an academic movement of the U.S. civil rights scholars and activists who seek to critically examine the intersection of race and U.S. law and to challenge mainstream American liberal approaches to racial justice. My source, Wikipedia. Why are teachers not using the national reading list to assign appropriate readings? What happened to teaching the curriculum? What happened to the readings of the past? I have a few here. The Color Purple, Roots, To Kill a Mockingbird, that was one of my favorites. The Great Gatsby, and of course, the all-time classic, The Diary of Anne Frank. Now, I'm not saying that racism, and excuse me, I may get a little emotional right here. Now, I'm not saying that racism does not exist. To say such a thing would be absurd. We all know that. However, if this is something that must be talked about and taught within the walls of our schools, then what happened to American history? What happened to world history? What happened to the simple civics class? I think it's time to bring them all back. I feel that if this topic is to still be taught in the schools, then teach it. And teach the real history of it. Not this watered down version that we have today because we're afraid that somebody's feelings are going to get hurt. Excuse me, I lost my place. Let's teach true history of slavery and not just the white versus black slavery. Let's teach on how all nations and all people of all colors were at one point in their lineage a slave. That's a fact. My bloodline runs deep, as it consists of Irish, Scottish, Cherokee, and Creek Indian. I could stand up here all night and preach upon the Irish slave trade and how bad the American Indians had it. Yes, those were my ancestors. But that's in the past, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Yes, this is a very controversial topic, and yes, it needs to be talked about, and yes, I am a firm believer that it needs to be taught. But it needs to be taught the right way, not with this garbage. In closing, and I appreciate your time, and thank you for listening. Teach these children history and where society went wrong, so that they may grow up to be the future, to change the way that things are today. Stop teaching and spreading hate. That's all this is. White on black, black on white, cop versus kids, kids versus cops, gangs. It's garbage. It should not be allowed in our schools. By the way, government doesn't need your help pushing their agenda. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Mr. Kirkley, I will just mention before you go that we do have a process in place for when parents or community members do disagree with a textbook or a teaching tool that's being used. There's a process for going through a grievance process on that to get something removed from the library, and so I would encourage you to go through that process.
Yes, sir. The assistant superintendent has my email address. We spoke previously on different matters.
Okay.
So if you guys could, if you would please give me that information, I will gladly follow up and pursue whatever avenue.
Yeah, if you'll just follow up with Mr. Darrow, and he can kind of walk you through that process.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
For your time.
Appreciate it.
Brings us to item 3, superintendent's report.
All righty. Okay, got several things I want to cover in superintendent's report today. The first one is really good news that EPS is a recipient of a $40,000 Striving Readers mini grant. It's actually an extension to what we have been doing in the past. This one specifically for some solution tree training at the high school, whereas in the past I believe our Striving Readers grant is focused on elementary, and so thought I would ask Mr. Darrow, and Kristen's not here, so Dudley's going to talk about that mini grant.
Sure. First of all, this is an extension, as Dr. Floyd said, to our Striving Readers grant. The United States Department of Education donated some money to extend that. It was for $20,000 per school, so Mr. Liddell, Ms. Jones, and myself all worked on a grant, and we applied for it. I don't know how or why, but they went from $20,000 to giving us $40,000. So we're very happy about that, and we're going to use that money, just as Dr. Floyd said, towards Solution Tree and continuing the PLC movement and process at the high school. So very fortunate. As I said, it went from $20,000 up to $40,000. So win, win, win.
All right, thank you, Dudley. So that'll be good, good for kids at the secondary level. Second thing I want to mention is the EPS 7th and 8th graders will benefit from the new flight course, and we want to say thank you again to Vance Air Force Base and the money that kind of kick-started that program. Ready for Liftoff is the name of the program. So again, thank you to Vance Air Force Base, and thought I would ask Mr. Darrell again to say a brief synopsis about this program.
Sure. Kitty Herbal really took the lead on this process and get it implemented at all 3 sites, Longfellow, Emerson, and Waller. And the second person that deserves a lot of credit is Colonel Higgins, who helped write the grant, is also working with Mrs. Herbal in the middle schools on getting some guest speakers in and continuing the curriculum. And this is also embedded in our Project Lead the Way classes, technology classes at the middle school. So again, win-win-win at all 3 middle schools.
And kind of an extension to that is that just today I finalized a meeting that we are going to host here in this room with the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission, OAC, and they've asked to have an audience with Enid Public Schools and North Enid to introduce a curriculum focused on aviation education, and we'll see what that entails. I think there are 1 or 2 districts in the state already have that in place, so I'm interested to see what they bring to us, but that may be an extension of what we're doing here in this Ready for Liftoff program at the middle school level and extend into the high school level, so we'll keep you posted on that. Next item is discounted internet service that is now available to EPS parents who qualify for the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. So thought I would ask Dr. Robinson and or Jeffrey Herbal to say a word about that. Jeff, you want to step up to the mic in case they have any questions?
I'll kick us off just a little bit, and then Jeff can definitely answer some more questions. Basically, this is a discount on broadband internet and also on devices for our students and their families who qualify for free and reduced lunch program. So that's really another reason to have as many people complete the application process as possible, because they're always changing that income level, and so it's really important to get that in because that's how you qualify. And basically, all of our providers in Enid are participating in this program. There is one exception. Jeff and I checked the list before we came in here. Chisholm Broadband is currently not on the list, but that's not to say they won't be added at some point in time. So parents really can get that $50 a month discount on broadband internet at their house by qualifying and going through their internet provider, or if they don't have one, they can go to an internet provider and fill out. I believe most of them have an application. It's kind of what I was reading. They'll require you to fill out, and then they qualify for that money for at least a year of discounted services.
Anything to add on that broadband?
Well, the real interesting thing, when it first came out this summer, it was for the 2 previous years for free and reduced lunch. They just updated that for anyone that qualifies for this year. So if you've had a hardship and you qualify this year as of today, so that's why it's important to make sure they get their free and reduced application turned in now. They do qualify for that. And the term of the benefit is 6 months after the pandemic is declared ended or the funds run out. But so we're thinking at least the end of this school year, maybe into next school year, that this benefit will be available.
All right, and thank you, Jeff. And Dr. Robinson, while you're on that topic of free and reduced, would you like to say a word about the PEBT program? PEBT, that's the federal government checks that some free and reduced parents may start receiving soon if in fact their child qualified for free and reduced during a virtual time period.
Yes, if parents and students qualified for free and reduced lunch last year, there's a program out there where they're actually going to be given a debit card, I believe, and not an actual check. But it's a debit card that will be mailed directly to the family. It's important that families are aware and don't throw it out with the junk mail, because the concern that I was given last Friday is it's going to basically come in a white envelope, not a lot of directions to it, so somebody could think it is junk mail and just throw it out. When you really need to look at it, open it up, it's going to have a debit card in there, and I don't have any more information what it's going to look like, how the system's going to play out, but those funds are really for families to use in whatever manner they see fit. They're part of what they're for is for learning, for food. That's really the intent of what they're out there for. But we've checked our records. Our lists were all submitted correctly last year. from everything we can tell. So our families that qualified should be receiving those anytime. I believe they're supposed to be out within the next month. So anytime from today to the next month, those should be.
So we really don't have a part in it other than what we turned in last year based on the free and reduced applications that the parents turned in. So the reason I wanted to ask Sam to say a word about that is to reiterate how, even though students are eating free this year, free and reduced students are eating free this year, it is still extremely important for parents to go ahead and complete that free and reduced application this year, because that will be the free and reduced numbers that our district utilizes moving forward even after the pandemic. So we would certainly encourage parents to go ahead and complete that. We really need them to do that. All right. Good news also on the Enid High School newspaper. Alex, we appreciate the Enid News and Eagle working with our high school on the Enid News and Eagle EHS page, which will be published in the paper the second and fourth Wednesday of each month, the Enid Plainsman Quill page. So they had their first edition in recently, and so appreciate the Enid News and Eagle working with us on that, and that's a good experience for high school students to write articles and that type of thing, and good for our parents and community members to see the good things that are happening in our school district as well. So appreciate that effort. I want to say a word about the new student transfer law that takes effect in January, this coming January 2022. We are waiting on the State Department of Education based on the law that was passed by the legislature this past spring. The State Department of Education now has to provide guidance to the Oklahoma State School Board Association so that they can put together sample policies and then provide school districts with those sample policies that we then can present to you guys for approval prior to those new transfer laws taking effect this coming January. So as soon as we get those, we'll be submitting them to you and talking about it. We anticipate that that will come to us no later than November, we hope, but that's where that stands. Next up is each year we are required to report to our board the annual 7 through 12 dropout report and annual college remediation for a previous school year, and this is always in arrears. So the report you have in front of you, this is it, isn't it, Dudley? Right here. So board members, you have this one at your place, and this is for the 1920 school year, and I'll ask Mr. Darrow to give us a brief report on this.
Okay, the first page, I just took some schools that are predominantly in our area, Garfield, Grant, Kate County, Noble. I just tried to break this down by our area, and I'm going to go through this across the top line of Enid High School. So we had 136 in 2019 that attended college after high school. Of the 136, zero needed remediation in science, 26 in English, 39 in math, 24 in reading, for a grand total of 44 students that entered college needed remediation. I would like to point out one interesting fact, and I mentioned this last year whenever I spoke about this. The zero in science is a little misleading because OSU, NOC, Northwestern, they all used a reading portion for their remediation in science. So I really don't know if we have 24 kids that need reading remediation or if it's 12 in science, 12 in reading. But again, that kind of gives you a pretty good comparison of how we do across Northwest Oklahoma. On the far top left corner, I put on there that we graduated 411 kids that year. So 136 of those kids went to college, roughly about 33%, which is a pretty good turnout if you look nationally. The second page is our graduation report. I have nothing new to report to you. The State Department of Education is still behind on graduation report. So everything I have is from 2019. That's the last official documentation that's been produced by the State Department. I will tell you a couple facts and a couple bullets at the bottom. In 2019-20, we had a 2% dropout, which if we could somehow continue the 2% dropout for 4 years, that would put us in the 90s, which is where we'd love to be. Obviously, our high school goal is 92%. Of the 45 students of the 1996 were the ones that were considered dropout. That's where the 2.1 came from. This past year, we had 441 students graduate with only 2 not completing their coursework, If we can get those 2 graduated by October 1, they will be on our 4-year cohort. Above, you see a 4-year cohort, a 5-year cohort, and a 6-year cohort. So if we can get these last 2, which the high school staff assured me today that they're still working with them and beating them up, trying to get them to across the deadline by October 1, they would still be considered a 4-year report. The 2 biggest variables, I'll just tell you, are the students that drop out during the school year. Obviously, if a kid quits coming, we have to drop them and we have to track them down. The second variable that is very difficult to track are the kids that don't come back from summer. This past year, we had 11 students not return from summer break. We're currently working with our campus police officers that you saw tonight, along with Garfield County officials, on tracking these kiddos down, locating them, and making sure they're in school. So lots of resources. I listed them down there. We're always looking to improve in this area. It's a very difficult area, but this is the most up-to-date information I have for you.
I did want to introduce Pam Schmidt. She's down here at the table with us where Carol usually sits. Carol went home ill today, and Pam is filling in on taking the minutes and everything for us tonight, so you'll make sure to reiterate the motions and the seconds for Pam tonight. I'd appreciate it on the action items.
I screw up more than anybody, so sorry in advance.
I did tell her to stop us if she needs to, but we appreciate Pam filling in tonight. And Pam is actually Dudley's secretary, and Pam has, I've already made a decision to move Pam into Carol's position when she retires in December. So this is a good experience for Pam, and we'll try to be gentle on you tonight and kind of ease you into it. But thanks for coming tonight, Pam. So the reason I wanted to stop there and introduce her now is because on this report, we have to include that in the minutes and then send those minutes to our REO officer, so this will check that box. So appreciate Dudley providing that report to us. Did anybody have any questions on that report for Mr. Darrell?
And this actually probably is more Sam, maybe he may know. On the truancy officer, just since I saw that, are we still using grant money on him? We're not. So it's still, remind me, I cannot.
We just pay him out of the general fund.
General, okay.
Yeah, just like we do teachers and everybody else.
And is he tracking down, still doing?
He's making home visits, yep.
Yep. Mr. Stoggs is doing a good job for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Dudley. Appreciate it. Next, I wanted to remind everybody that next month in October, we will start back up with our strategic plan committee chair reports, and we will start with our facilities report, and that'll be Dr. Robinson and myself and Mr. Garrison. And this award you see here between Matt and myself is a really nice award that Henson Construction won for being the general contractor on our competition gym and performing arts center at the high school. So wanted to display that. But Brian Henson got one of those, ordered one of those for his office, and then provided us with one as well. So we appreciate him doing that. And we, again, want to say thank you to Henson Construction for doing just an outstanding job on that project. And it's nice to know that the General Contractors Association saw what a great job they did as well. So we'll be ready with that report in October and then move on through the next several months after that with character development, assessment, accountability, curriculum instruction, personnel, extracurricular opportunities, and community partnerships. Enrollment numbers. I'm happy to say that we are now at 7,775, and that is 285 students up from where we ended in May. So we ended May 7490, and we're now at 7775. So moving in the right direction, and we are glad to be continuing with in-person instruction, which leads me to item I in the superintendent's report, and I just wanted to touch on several things here. One is I wanted to rehash for everyone what we are currently doing on our COVID procedures for our school district. We are trusting parents to make the best choice for their students concerning masks. Students and faculty and staff can choose to wear a mask or not. That's based on what the legislature passed last session. Number 3, sick students and employees in general, as has been the case in the past, can return to school after being fever-free for 24 hours, but if someone tests positive for COVID, they should stay home for 10 days from the date of their positive COVID test. Elementary schools will notify parents of that particular classroom if someone in that self-contained classroom has tested positive, but we will not notify the entire elementary campus. The reason we want to notify the parents in that particular classroom is so that the parents then can monitor their students for any symptoms. And then, due to the fact that quarantining last year sent so many healthy students and employees home for extended periods of time, sometimes for numerous extended periods of times, we are not quarantining students or employees unless the Garfield County Health Department or the Oklahoma State Health Department requires us to do so. Campus secretaries and our nurses are helping to keep track of our positive cases and our exposures, and we are documenting that information, and Jane is helping us keep track of that, and we are, as required, sending that in via single sign-on to the State Department, so we are in compliance there. So I wanted to basically just rehash that because that's what we currently have in place. COVID testing options for Enid, our head nurses sent this out recently, just reminding everybody where they can go to get a COVID test. And I'm sure these are not the only places, but Garfield County Health Department, Express Wellness, Urgent Care Plus, Urgent Care North, Enid Live Well, and a number of other places in town, folks can go to get COVID tests. And then I wanted to mention that in this room, we will conduct voluntary flu shots clinic for employees, and for those that have not gotten their COVID shots but still want to, they will be offered to those on a voluntary basis at that flu clinic as well. And we'll do that all here in this room 2 times for employees of Enid Public Schools, one on October the 12th from 7 to 9 a.m. and then 3 to 6 p.m. and then a second time the following week on October the 19th, again 7 to 9 a.m. or 3 to 6 p.m. for employees on a voluntary basis for flu shots and COVID shots if they want to take advantage of that. You probably saw in the news that students age 5 to 11 have now been approved for vaccines, but we don't have any guidance on that yet. So obviously that's a voluntary basis on their parents' end anyway. So I know as much as you do on that and what I heard on the news. So I hadn't gotten any guidance any further on that than that. Let's see. I did want to mention that the School Board Association did send us guidance recently that public schools in Oklahoma are not subject to the regulations of the vaccine testing rules that the Biden administration sent out recently, and so that would not apply to school district employees, even though we do have more than 100 employees. Let's see here. So that brings me to item 4 on that item, and as I shared with the board over the last several months, we probably will have this on the agenda for the next foreseeable future to discuss and then decide if we want to take any action to approve the continuation of what we're doing on our COVID procedures or make any changes or revisions to that. I personally think that what we currently have in place is working well because we currently have less than 1% positive cases of our employees and less than 1% positive cases of our students. Matter of fact, we only have 7, as of today, we have 7 positive cases of employees and 63 positive cases of students. So less than 1% on each of that. So I think our board and our school district has taken the right approach in trying to have in-person instructions. I think what we are doing is working, and I would certainly recommend that we continue doing that, but I do want to give anybody an opportunity to chime in on that item before we move on to the next. If we continue with what we're doing, we don't need to take any action. If we want to make some changes, well, then we would need to take some action. Anybody want to chime in?
No, but would you like a motion
I
for us
don't-
to approve
if-
the current?
No, if we're just
good?
continuing, we don't need action. If we are making changes, well, then we would need action. Everybody good with continuing? All right, no action needed then. Everybody good down there? Okay, good. All righty, thank you very much. Board training. So Carol surveyed all the board members. If you'll recall, we were going to try to bring the School Board Association in here to have board training to where our board members could get some board training credit here at our place, and it's sometimes easier to bring a couple of trainers in here rather than all of us going to the city or somewhere else. So we looked at a couple of options, early October or late October. Looked like all of our board members could attend a meeting 5:30 to 8 roughly on October the 25th. That is a Monday at the end of October. I think I made a typo on the first email that I sent you guys as a reminder, but it is October 25th, not September the 25th. So that's a Monday, and we will have dinner at 5:30 here, and then Dr. Ann Kane and Dr. Joe Ciano from the School Board Association will be here to conduct our training, and I hope that we can have all of our board members present for that. So we got all that worked out, and I did confirm with them again today that they could come, and they are on go. So you guys will be able to knock out 3 hours of credit, required training credit that night. And then, after we got all that finalized, then I discovered that at the bottom of one of the OSSBA emails, they had started to list the regional board trainings that they have had in the past, and we're in Region 3, and so this year's Region 3 training is going to be held in Covington, so that's pretty close for us, and just so happens that that happens on the Thursday night after the October 25th training that we'll hold here. And I know that's 2 trainings in 1 week, and it's not ideal, but it'll allow you to get 6 hours of training credit knocked out in 1 week. So the first one here is October the 25th. We'll feed you at 5:30. We'll start the training at 6 and hopefully be done by 8. Then on Thursday, October the 28th, we'll have 1 or 2 Suburbans ready to load up and head to Covington, and we'll plan on leaving from here at 4:45 p.m., get over there and conduct that training roughly 5:30 to 8:30, but usually they'll probably try to get us out of there before 8:30. So, does everybody feel like they can make both of those in the same week?
Yes.
You're not required to go to trainings, but you're certainly welcome to join us if you want to, for one, both, or none, whatever you wish. All righty, good. I'm glad that we're able to get 6 hours of training out of the way for you guys on that. So, sorry it's all happening on 1 week, but we can knock it out. And then the last item on my superintendent report is a reminder about board elections upcoming, and you have a summary sheet at your place. It says EPS Board Elections 2022, and this is kind of an odd year because we do have 3 of our current board members that just so happen they come up for election and or re-election this year. So Dr. Robinson kind of handles most of the paperwork on this, so I'll turn it over to him to say a word about board elections for 2022.
This is the first time I've done a summary sheet, but I think it'll really clear all the questions up because this is kind of the questions we get every year. The one thing I want to bring to attention is the filing period is December 6th through 8th. It's a very short filing period. Normally we have 4 to 5 days. They've shortened it to 3 for some reason. And so please make sure anybody that's filing that you get in there and get that done prior to the close of business on December 8th. There is the primary and the general election. In the primaries, if you have 3 or more candidates running for that one open position, then there would be a primary election. If no one receives more than 50% of the vote in the primary, then there's a general election. So there's a possibility now of going through 2 elections to become a board member. So just kind of keep that in mind. And just to announce the offices, we have Office 4, which is Joe, Office 5, which is Matt, and then Office number 7 is Chad. And Chad, yours is only up because you were appointed and have more than half of the remaining term to fill. And so bad news for you is you'll have to do this again in 2 years. Instead of
And
looking
just for
elected ones.
clarification, Office 5 is Matt Lohman, not Matt Sampson.
That's right, Matt Loman. Yes, sir. Okay, that's all I have. If there's any
And then
questions.
if they file and have no opposition, well, they don't have to go through the primary election, and we don't have to go through the cost or expense of an election at all.
That's right, and that is now also been clarified on placing an unopposed candidate is placed in April after the general election. We used to do it in February. We now have to wait until April to actually place that position. So, just to be clear on everything.
So, any questions from any of the board members, but especially Matt or Chad? Joe's not here. Any questions? All righty, thanks for putting that summary sheet together for us, Sam. That's helpful. And, Mr. President, I believe that's the extent of my superintendent report this evening.
Thanks, sir. Brings us to item 4, regular business. Items A1 through 11. Do I have a motion?
Move we approve.
Motion by Tori,
Second.
second by Kyle. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Brings us to item 4B, discussion and possible action to approve the district's financial report for August 2021. Dr. Robinson.
This month's finance report, as it has been for the last few years, collections are looking good, but I want to bring attention to the general fund in this one. We have actually collected $1.3 million more than we did through August last year. And part of that is our textbook allocation from the state. They're now paying that up front, and that was not quite doubled for us, but it went from about $350,000 to about $620,000. So we were given that money up front. In the years past, it had been given to, when they reinstated it, it was given to us on a 12-month allotment. So it's really good, because I guess when you need textbooks and those kind of things, you need them at the beginning of the year, not to pay them off as you go throughout the course of the school year. So there's 300 of that. And then our ESSER 2 funds that we spent in last fiscal year, we were reimbursed for. About 500,000 of that actually came into us in August. And so right there's 800,000 of that 1.3 million. So really, to be $500,000 collected more than we were last year is good news for the school district, and revenues are looking really good. One of the things on expenditures that I just kind of want to talk about is, if you're looking at expenditures real closely, you might see some line items that are a little different, and that's because we're doing a lot of one-time purchases with a lot of our one-time money. The problem with some of these purchases are that you might see them as a board, and then you actually won't see that happen for maybe 3, 4, 6 months down the road, because the COVID issue has really hit us on a lot of the things we're buying. And so I want to, like I said in the last meeting, just be aware of that. We're making those encumbrances, and if you don't see those things come through, it's probably a holdup on the supply end of it, not really anybody's fault. It's just how things are right now, as you guys are well aware. So anyways, things are looking really good, and we're just pushing forward, and thanks to Dudley on getting us some extra money. Counselor Core, a little extra on striving readers, so it's really good. Just need a motion to approve unless there's any questions.
Move we approve.
Motion by Tori, second by Matt. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 4C, discussion and possible action to approve the district's annual estimate of needs for fiscal year 2022. Dr. Robinson.
The estimate of needs is our official state budget, and I want to kind of give you guys a little bit of story on this, because last Friday I had a meeting with several other CFOs, and there is another way you can do this. You can do it through the Budget Act, is what it's called, and we can actually set our whole budget in the summer, but they've really made some changes to this. So if you guys are ever in any trainings and you hear about the Budget Act, I'm going to say, please don't come talk to me about changing from estimate of needs to the Budget Act, because they've made that problematic for some of those schools that have done that, and it has to do with carryover funds for some reason. And I really don't know all the details on it. They were just really complaining, and they basically said they're going to be switching back to estimate of needs because of what the state's doing to them on the Budget Act. So with that being said, the estimate of needs is our actual budget for the school year. It's going to set our appropriation and our allocation that we can spend. This gets sent to the County Excise Board, which sets our county mills on our bond issuance. It also goes to the State Department, and it says this is what Enid Public Schools' maximum spend allowance is for this school year. So I'm going to run through this really quickly. The general fund would be appropriated $77,871,108.40. The building fund is going to be $4,280,249.57. And our sinking fund, which is our bond repayment, and this is where the mills can adjust, is $9,065,260.42. And our millage adjustment looks like it's going to drop slightly. I'm not going to say it's anything to get real excited about that you're going to have extra money on your tax bill, but it is going down by about 0.3 percentage points. So any reduction in millage to me is good news, even if it's small. So anyways, this is just our basic budget for the year. Needs your approval so we can continue spending, and then I will present to you guys an actual budget come January on where we're really sitting at for the school year.
Do I have a motion?
Move we approve.
Motion by Tori,
Second.
second by Chad. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 4D, discussion and possible action to approve the EPS lease agreement with the Enid Police Department for leasing of 12 portable breath testing units purchased out of the Lori Mitchell Boland Memorial Drunk Driver Scholarship at the request of Mr. Boland.
This is kind of a unique situation to Enid. I really don't know any other school districts that have this. I'm sure it exists. But Mr. Boland has set up a fund within Enid Public Schools in memory of his daughter who was killed by a drunk driver several years ago. Those funds are pretty, there are funds to control as a school district, but Mr. Boland has directed those funds as to where he wants them spent in the prevention and of drunk driving, and to keep drunk drivers off the road has essentially been the goal of those funds. In the years past, we've done things such as rides home, New Year's Eve kind of thing. Last year, we did a publication in the newspaper about not driving drunk, making good decisions around the holiday season. And this year, Mr. Boland, and those costs are pretty minimal for the $10,000 that we have in the account. This year, Mr. Boland really wanted to do something different. He wanted to buy the breathalyzers for our police officers. They're a portable breathalyzer and prevention of drunk driving. And so in order for the school district to really be able to buy something for the city, we have to do a memorandum of understanding. We already have several shared services with them. So Mr. Boland's, the family's money that's been set aside is being used to pay for these breathalyzers. We're not taking anything away from our students, from state dollars. This is really in the gift account. And the city actually was in the process of getting these breathalyzers. They're the ones who picked them out, kind of went through that. And so they were definitely going to be used by the city. And so it's really, we're just going to continue those services, kind of an MOU with them. Once we turn them over, we have no liability on the breathalyzers, as we wrote in the MOU, because I don't want the board to be going to court if somebody is found to be drunk with one of our breathalyzers that we're turning over to the city.
Dr. Robinson, just to clarify, these are going to be in the possession of City of Enid police officers, not Enid Public Schools officers.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And there is a possibility that we could use those for things such as prom and other events we have, but right now it's turned over to the city, checked out, just like they do with their cameras that they use, other things they check out when they go on patrol. So I think it's a good use of the funds, and I would have no hesitation in approving this as board members. So I'll leave it up to you guys if there's any questions.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve Mr. Boland's request.
Motion by Matt.
Second.
Second by Kyle. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries.
That is very generous of that family to do, and certainly we are sorry for their loss, but glad that they are generous enough to donate some money that's hopefully going to prevent a tragedy like that in the future.
Brings us to item 5, new business.
I failed to mention that I placed some stickers at board members' places suitable for placing on your vehicle. I don't know if you've already got some on there or not, but gave each of you one of those, and I've got a few more here if you need them or want them. And then we'll make sure that our absent board members get those as well.
No new business?
No, sir.
All right. Item 6, reports. Colonel Miller?
Only really one thing to bring up from the base this week. In case somebody didn't know, this past weekend we celebrated 2 significant dates on the base. First, of importance to everybody around here, we celebrated the 80th anniversary of Vance Air Force Base and the close partnership, of course, we have with the city of Enid that goes back that far. And in addition to that, we celebrated the 74th birthday of the United States Air Force. So Friday night, we had a little shindig out at Woodring, and then we had a couple of celebrations on the base over the weekend, but all that culminated with us actually naming the wing commander's airplane the City of Enid.
Wow.
Which is a tradition that goes back to, back in the 50s, we had a couple of aircraft named the City of Enid, and that fell by the wayside for a bit. So should any of you find yourself out at the air base and it doesn't happen to be flying, training a pilot at the time, I'd be happy to show it to you.
Wow, that's cool.
So barring any questions, that's all I have today. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Board comments? Hearing none brings us to item 7. Next regular business meeting will be on October 18th here in the Administrative Building at 6 p.m. Item 8, discussion and possible action to approve a proposed executive session to discuss the proposed termination of Angela Green, employment of those individuals or positions listed on the attached Exhibit A, the purchase or appraisal of real property, or any pending litigation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Tori. Second by Matt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in executive session.